RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be construed as medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. As always, my name is Zach Payne, the corruption detector, and this is another edition of Red Pill News for Friday Night Livestream. Joining me tonight, actually, in a pre-recorded interview because he couldn't be here live, Clif High, the man, the myth, the legend. Yeah, it's an awesome conversation, guys. And the good news is, now that Cliff and I know each other, he has agreed to come back on the show to do a full 2 hours in the very near future, which will include calls with you, the audience. Joker John Roberts, good to see your name, buddy. Yeah, I'm excited to watch this show with you guys. This is a good one. So here's the question. Is the future already written? And if it is written, do we have the ability within us to change what is predestined? I don't know. It's a deep question, guys. Hello to everybody out there in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. See people from all over the world. All right, do me a favor, sit back, relax, grab your popcorn. We're going to be right back after this. Over the last 2 years, collagen sales have been surging, and that's not without good reason. Collagen is quickly becoming well known for its anti-aging abilities. You only have to do this one thing to look younger, and that is to take collagen. But the problem is, most collagen supplements out there simply don't work. The secret is ageless multi-collagen. And Health with Red Pill is the most effective collagen for anti-aging out there, in my opinion. Thousands of users agree with me after taking it. Their skin looks healthier and younger, and they feel healthier and younger after taking it on a regular basis. Men also report increased muscle mass. You see, it is the best anti-aging supplement I've ever used myself. And the reason Health with Red Pill works is because it uses 5 types of high-quality collagen instead of simply 1. If you want to improve your hair, skin, or your nail health, you need this. And if you've been looking for a way to reduce the appearance of wrinkles, you're gonna love Health with Red Pill. And you can get 51% off Health with Red Pill for the next 24 hours by going to healthwithredpill.com or visit the link below. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. Oh, hello there. What happened? Hold on. Let me fix my camera. There we go. There's this weird thing with OBS. When I stop it and then start it again, it readjusts the size of my camera. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, guys. I see lots of people out there in the chat. Thank you very, very much for hanging out with us tonight. Like I said, tonight's guest is Clif High. It was an excellent conversation. We touched on a lot of very poignant topics, things that are specific to our day and age and this time that we're living in. Very, very crazy things. Hello out there, Red Pill Girlfriend. Thank you very much, honey. I'm glad to see you. Vector 711. I see so many good people. Abe, Uncensored Abe. Incredible stuff. Looks like a whole bunch of people followed over on DLive. Thank you very much for that. I've seen several people following over on Twitch as well. Appreciate you guys. Do me a favor. Please make sure that you have my website bookmarked, redpill78news.com. The live shows are there. The archives are there. The podcast is there. Everything that I do ends up on the website. And do me a favor, if you've been watching my shows on YouTube, please don't watch them on YouTube because somebody in another country is stealing them and uploading them and then monetizing them. And I just find it very ironic that I am not allowed to put my own shows on YouTube. I couldn't even get paid to do so when I did, but some other people can, and they actually they don't do anything about it. It just continues on. Also, I am drinking my collagen right now. All right, guys. Well, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the interview with Clif. We're going to see what happens. You know, let me know in the chat if you guys want to do a call in afterwards. We can, but you know, if people don't feel moved to, then we don't have to. I hate doing the call-ins when people don't want to call in and don't have anything to say. So here, well, BM17, you're going to get a definition of woo right now. Here we go. It's Clif High. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Red Pill News. If you're watching this right now, then that means that you're on my live stream on Friday. I believe it's October 1st. So I hope you guys are settling in, having a great time. We are going to now be having an exclusive conversation with the one and only Clif High. Clif is somebody that I have wanted to interview since the very beginning, and just last week I finally got around to emailing him, and he said he'd be happy to come on. Good news, Clif said that once some circumstances in his life even out, he is going to be able to come back on the show for a full 2 hours. He'll do another hour talking with me and then an hour taking your calls in the audience. Clif is an incredible mind. If you have not subscribed to him already, then I guess my only question is, which rock are you living under? Because the things that Clif has said over the years have been incredibly prescient. He has had some incredible predictions that have come true, and every time that he makes a video, in my opinion, it is just chock full of useful information, things that you need to be paying attention to. So once this video's over, make sure you click the links in the description below this video so you can subscribe to Clif and hear everything that he puts out on a regular basis. He is producing on BitChute so that he no longer has to worry about the censorship on YouTube. So without further ado, here is my interview with Clif High. All right, couple of false starts, but welcome back to another episode of Red Pill News. As always, I'm your host, Zach Payne, the corruption detector, and joining me for the very first time, my good friend Clif High. Clif, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, guy. This is so much fun on a Monday morning.
Oh, man. It's because it's a Monday, isn't it? All right. Yeah. So, well, as I told you already, I've been following your work for about a decade. I saw you first on Red Ice Creations, and I was really taken with your story. Very interesting stuff. You've lived quite a rich life. So for anybody who isn't familiar with you, you talk quite often about a concept called woo. What is woo? And you know, how did you conceptualize it?
Okay, so I had the fortunate occurrence to be born the son of a guy in the military who had certain skills that the military liked, and they shipped them all around the planet. As a result of that, I spent the first 5 years of my life living in a tribal existence in Alaska before it became a state. So this is pre-1959. And I lived with the tribal people up there that, unlike the tribal people that I live among now, they don't consider themselves to be like conquered, right? Mm-hmm. I'm down in the lower 48 now. But anyway, in Alaska, the tribal people there that we lived with had this concept of a natural world, that is a natural universe, that in which is housed the artificial and synthetic world of the white man. Okay, that was this creation that the white man didn't come up and take a chunk of a cedar tree and take another chunk of a cedar tree and so on and build a house. The white man came on up and cleared vast areas and made cement plants and all of this kind of stuff to construct what the native people saw as an artificial reality. And because of its artificialness, they thought was going to have trouble and fade. And they live in a world in which especially if you've ever been a sailor or you do exploration out in nature and you get into areas where it's cold and you have moisture, you get a certain kind of a fog, a crystalline fog that shimmers and provides light and shadow to your eye that can trick you constantly. And the ground is uneven because of the ice and so on. So they live in a world where what you see, you have to stop and wait and examine because it does not decode easily. And there's danger everywhere. A misstep on the ice and you're dead. So, you can slide to your death in just like that, and one little mistake and you're gone. So the world is dangerous, universe is dangerous, and it pays to pay attention to yourself in the environment in which you are. And it never dawned on me, like I was saying earlier, that until this advanced age here, this past couple of years, it's like, most people don't understand that the woo exists. They've never been inculcated to this idea that the framework they're living in is entirely artificial. And I know this is artificial because I have genetic predisposition to being a paranoid schizophrenic. And my brother was a full-on paranoid schizophrenic that died young. And as a paranoid schizophrenic, you are sensitive, or I was, I don't know if others are, very sensitive to people's emotions, especially in groups. And you get a certain feeling, that you can trust because it's repetitious and it always works. And you can tell when people are hiding things, right? You can tell when they're hiding their own emotions and this sort of thing. This ability to sense these emotions and how people are hiding it tells me that people are out there shoving stuff out into the woo, stuff they don't want you to see, right? The woo is all that area where everything is hidden. It's difficult to, you don't have a framework that you can trust. The woo is nothing but discovery. So when you set out in Alaska and it's foggy and you don't know what you're going to be seeing, what you're going to be encountering, it's all discovery. So you go out with a particular mindset that does not expect the universe to provide you with anything that you don't tease out yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is the aspect of the woo that everybody needs to understand, because we're there now. They've been the paradigm, the official paradigm has been deliberately pressurizing the woo. They've been inadvertently pressurizing the woo by shoving stuff out that they didn't want us to examine. Everything underneath the Warren Commission. So the Warren Commission is a coffin to seal the assassination of JFK, right? Mm-hmm. So that pushed it down into the woo and helped pressurize the woo. I started looking at that in 1964. There were books that were out there. They started suppressing those books in the United States in 1964. Mm-hmm. So the woo is an active process on the part of those people that are our oppressors, that are deliberately seeking to oppress and kill us. And so this is the battlefield, right? The battlefield is, from my viewpoint, to rip open the last of the paradigm and let the woo come in and teach the people how to discover what is there to be seen, right? This is the old saying that some people are born seeing, others can see when shown, and yet others will refuse to see. Mm-hmm. We're going to whittle down that latter group to very small, and then the rest of us are going to kick some butt.
Absolutely. So this kind of ties into the web bot that I know that you created, and I'm interested to know, how that came about, how it works, and are you still developing predictions from this algorithm?
Okay, so the latter part is that I'm developing predictions from two of the values that I use to track. These are duration and intensity, which provide me with what I call building emotional tension and release emotional tension values. These are numerics. And so I get a quantified idea of how emotionally tense the language is. I don't have a reliable source for the previous nuance that allowed me to describe the circumstances under which or around which that intensity or duration of emotional tension would develop, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the censorship. So what happens is that all of humanity is psychic. If you live in an environment where you're allowed to express that and become sensitized to it, you express that sensitivity and you express the psychic output in a different way, and it sort of gets like used up. I mean, you become aware of it and you take it into your life and go on and do stuff. If you don't have any kind of an outlet for it, it is my contention that you will still express it whether or not you're aware of it or not, because every human is psychic. And the main way people express it these days is in their texting and in their speech on the internet. Prior to the advent of the mobile, where we got into texting and the reduction of language that way, it was almost all on the internet in the way of email, forums, that kind of thing, right? And so my process worked on basically this difference, this delta, because every English language person on average knew about 125,000 words. They would be comfortable understanding what those 125,000 words meant. Mainly they were variants of each other anyway. And out of that, they would use, in any given year, you might use 25 or 30,000 words out of that group you used. And then any given week, you'd only be using like 2,500, depending on the nature of your work, right? If your work was complex, you might use a few more words. If it was more simple, you wouldn't use as many words, If you were doing retail, your spiel would shrink to a very known definitive amount of words that you used with your customers, these sorts of things, right? Okay, so the premise is, why do people work in their heads to come up with a word that's out of their usual comfort zone when they're out there typing and messaging to each other? Because I discovered people were doing this early on in the internet, back in the late 80s, when the internet was just starting in the form of BBS, before it was actually the internet, right? These bulletin board systems, because I experienced it even there. And they would look outside their usual comfort zone to find a particular word and insert it. And it would be glaring in the usual sense of it, because you could track their speech over the course of time. Individual people as posters on these fora, I could track their speech and look and see that, boy, they use this word. And I'm fascinated by words because of being an Army brat. I lived all over the planet. I came into contact with all different kinds of languages. Like I was 11 years old and I was thrown into German, Russian, Algerian, French, Flemish, Scottish, and if you think that's English, you're mistaken.
Absolutely.
Anyway, though, so I'm fascinated with language, right? Just have an inherent nature for it. So I started looking at this, and here I would see people would find a particular word and they would use it. So there was something that was driving them to it. And one day it tumbled to me, it's the psychic thing that's driving them to it. Actually, it was that I'd been noodling on it and gnawing on it for a long time because I observed it. I didn't know what was driving it, how it was actually relating to what I thought I was seeing, because I've been looking at it since '89. And in 1993, on September 11, I'm flying down to a gig in Mexico City, and the plane is struck by lightning. And it's a scary thing. I'm sitting in mid-plane. I figure, I'm not going to die. The plane isn't going to crash. I don't worry about any of that kind of stuff. But what struck me was the people in the plane knew before the lightning flashed that it was going to. They knew by about 6 to 10 seconds.
Wow.
And I observed that within the body of the plane. It was there were enough people, but it wasn't intensely packed, so I could watch people. And all of a sudden, everybody just, it's like, even before I felt the static electricity pulling on my hair, everybody knew that the lightning was going to go off. They were almost gasping. They were inhaling before it even popped off. So I knew that at that point, okay, I'm certain that everybody's psychic. And here was this electrically charged, energetic psychicness as the plane was struck by these two bolts of lightning. And then everybody's all happy and relaxed and so on. And that was a huge example of building emotional tension and then release of emotional tension. And so I started putting all these concepts together, and then eventually developed software that went on out and ate the internet in terms of language, just hauling in hundreds of millions of words in their context and analyzing each and every one of them relative to this thing that I called the emotional reduction engine. And out of that came both the emotional intensity, the duration values, all these other values, and then a set of descriptors that would allow me to pinpoint a particular thing that may occur and provide that descriptor set in the form of a little narrative and some indication of how big this event would be. And then I developed all these other precepts around that sort of thing. So it sort of worked.
So how would you be receiving the data? I mean, is it coming in do you have a custom, like feed for yourself, like gives you the descriptors,
no.
puts it in databases.
Oh, God, no.
I mean, how sophisticated is it?
Okay, well, so first off, it was done at a batch process because the early internet, I was working on 286 machines. And Windows, and the best I had ever done was Windows 98.
Oh, wow.
Now I remember running this stuff on Windows 3.1. So, but Windows 98 was really good. It was really a superior product. And it was most of the code was written in C. I had to write my own internet sweeps, everything. Had to write my own comparison. Ultimately, I got connected in 2001 with SQL Server, started doing some work for Microsoft, bought a license for SQL Server, and started doing everything within the SQL Server database and using SQL to do all the sorts and hunts. But most of the comparison in the engine was written in an artificial intelligence language, Lisp or Prolog. A lot of it was written in Prolog because Prolog's really good at handling words. So, and then there were Perl scripts. No, it was just a giant kludge, because I just wanted to make it work. Really, I was just trying to explore and see if I was correct, right? I wanted to, the idea was twofold. Initially, I was going to say, okay, I've discovered something. People are prescient, blah, blah, blah. They know that shit's coming. And what can I do with it? Oh, I can maybe make some money with it so I don't have to work and I can explore this stuff. So I'll figure out a way to do the stock market, right?
Yep.
And so I set up all this software to run, and I did this in 97, and I was going to find out what stocks were going to go, and I was going to go buy them ahead of that and then sell them when the software said, right? Be really brilliant. Never did any of that because the very first run that came through, it said sun disease, and it kept going on and on and on and on and on about sun disease. Now, I had been deliberately looking for sun, but I was looking for Stanford University Network. The stock ticker of that was SUN. And the data set brought me back all this stuff about what we now know to be the corona and all of the problems. And it did that in 1997, when we first started doing the run. I had that data for the sun disease. I had the data also suggesting that our actual physical scary ball in the sky was going to go through a process of change in this period of time and be coincident with humans getting the sun disease. I had descriptors in 1997 of people falling ill, grabbing lampposts and falling down. And it's like, what? So anyway, I just got too intrigued. I just got into discovery, and here we are now.
So in 1997, you were already looking for something related to the sun and disease. And then how did you feel when coronavirus burst onto the scene?
Well, okay, so I felt very weak and afraid, okay, because bear in mind, I had just died of cancer. All right, so I died in 2018, and it took me in mid-2018 on July 13th, and then, which was a Friday. And then it took me all of 2018 and all of 2019 to get close to feeling reasonably recovered, because this was a heavy hit. I'd lost so much mass and so on, right? So I was actually somewhat freaked out that I would have to do, that I was being this challenged, okay? Because here's the problem. So, all right, so over the course of the 20 plus years that I ran that software, there were a number of times that I got indications in the database that said, that provided a descriptor of a personality, a pathway, and a success state, okay? And so I had descriptors, for instance, that now are indicative of Elon Musk doing the SpaceX thing, right? Now, could I, in 1997, have maneuvered myself into that role of Elon Musk doing the SpaceX thing, right? I actually considered, because in 1997, I didn't know what I was going to do with this. I wasn't going to ever tell anybody any of the stuff I was discovering, because I knew everybody would think I was crazy. They already thought I was crazy, but at least the, people like Microsoft, GEC, Marconi, British Airlines, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, any number of state and federal government agencies all thought I was crazy enough but brilliant enough to hire to do things. So I wrote a software program in the late 80s that ran for 25 years without failure for a state agency, and was a distributed processing system that I could have patented, never did. Didn't even think about trying to do that sort of thing because it would have put me on a particular path, right? So in this doing this work, I came across a number of roles that I could have slotted myself into. Mm-hmm. Now, in the nature of my mind, I was wondering, is universe providing me this knowledge so that I should do that, mm-hmm. right? And I never felt compelled for any of that. Never felt compelled on any of that shit. I was like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Then I'd end up doing X, Y, Z, right? I'd end up, being a pillow manufacturer or something. You see what I'm saying, right? And none of these things that I wanted to do. And I don't have those skill sets anyway. So, but in the course of this, here is a weird situation. I went through cancer for 30 years undiagnosed. In the course of those 30 years, because of the nature of the allopathic medicine system not being able to find this cancer or knowing what was going on with me, I had 30 years of interaction with the allopathic medicine system that ended up every single time being negative and degrading my health to the point where I had died. But in order to keep myself going in those 30 years with this advancing state of cancer, I had to become my own doctor in the form of being a non-allopathic woo medicine person, right? Mm-hmm. Trying anything and everything. And so I examined it systematically by regions on the planet for herbal products, and et cetera, not knowing I had cancer, but knowing I was desperately ill, and getting down to the point where in the end, the last 3 years, I could only work 3 hours a day. I could only be on my feet 3 hours a day, yet medicine couldn't help me. So we fast forward to 2019. I'm rebuilding my body. It's tedious because I didn't want to rebuild it. I did not want to come back. They threw me back. They said I had more work to do. Go. And that was it. Fuck. I'm back. Okay, so I was 128 pounds. I was cold, constantly just chilled. I had died. And I had responsibilities here because my wife is infirm and I had dogs to take care of and all this kind of stuff. So life was hard. And then I had to rebuild myself. And so I thought, retirement, I'm going to be able to rebuild myself, figure out some kind of retirement, have a nice, easy passing this next time, right? This was the third time I've died in this life. It was rough. Wow. And so and then 2020 hit. And that's when I thought, oh, crud, I've got to do work. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, okay, because in the data sets there had associated since 1997, there was a conjunction of individuals that were going to be anti-allopathic medicine and successful in keeping people out of the sun disease. And so I knew that role existed. I knew that there was a need for it. And so when it hit in late 2019, when I first started seeing on the Chinese deep web signs that there was something really weird going on in China and people were dying en masse, mm-hmm. That's when I thought, okay, I've got to really get serious about that. This is why universe sent me back. This is the work that it wanted me to do. And I think that this was the role it wanted me to take in this particular time. And if there had been someone else better, I would certainly have gladly handed it over to him because it's been a shitload of work. But it apparently has been successful. There have been a number of people that have run up against and dealt with the bioweapon, mm-hmm. and have come through it unscathed because they listened to me and took this particular approach. And universe had pre-prepped me for 30 years of examining all of these different molecules and herbs and medicinal mushrooms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I know this shit, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I've read the entire Yellow Emperor's compendium, 640 pages in Old Chinese. Mm-hmm. And so I know a deep background on this, and sure enough, we've come through it, and there's some understanding here, even though we're still discovering and still pulling stuff out of the woo about our current situation.
So let's talk about your protocol real quick, because I've been through coronavirus. I just had it. I was pretty sick for a couple of weeks. I took ivermectin. That really turned me around. But specifically, what is your protocol that you've developed for staving this off and making sure people can stay healthy and alive?
So we start with getting your vitamin D up as high as you can. 90 nanograms per milliliter is the recommended dose or recommended level in your blood, okay? And that's going to vary depending on your body weight because vitamin D is fat soluble. But so you have to do a blood test, but you can buy blood tests on Amazon. They're cheap. You take a finger prick and then mail them off. Maybe that's 10,000 international units a day. I take 10,000 international units a day of vitamin D, and I'll soon switch in December to 15,000 a day because we're going to be under the cloud cover continuously, and I'll get no sunlight to speak of for this, right? I may this year use a vitamin D lamp to try and raise it, but vitamin D is the critical factor. The reason that vitamin D is the critical factor for preventing this is there are multiple reasons for this, but there's one key one. The ACE2 receptor that everybody talks about with COVID, that where COVID comes in, all of the receptors where the spike protein can come and get you have this peculiarity where they're basically hooked and the spike protein fills a gap. If you have vitamin D there appropriately, it bends it over far enough that that gap does not exist. And this vitamin D is an inherent part of the effectiveness of the immune system. But then it's like, so vitamin D, and then I take vitamin C, and then I take chaga, and then zinc. Chaga mushroom has vitamin D, vitamin C, and zinc in it, but you need to have quantities to deal with the spike protein and the bioweapon, and then also the shedding and so forth that other people, that the Delta variant is creating, right? Because that's just people shedding the spikes.
Sure.
The vitamin C I take is liposomal because you get absorption levels better than injectable. So if you just take regular ascorbic acid, you get 20% absorption through your gut. If you take injectable, you get 70%. If you take liposomal, which is vitamin C blended to a fat, so don't get soy lecithin, get sunflower or some other oil, that'll go in through your liver and you get 80 to 90% absorption of the vitamin C. So an incredible boost to you. And then chaga is the most studied medicinal mushroom on the planet. They've been studying this thing for 40 years. They know it is the supreme immunoregulator, bar none. There is no better immunoregulator that humans can take, even though science can't tell you a fraction of how it works. They know it does this, they know it does that, but they don't know really how it all functions. But it is called the mushroom of immortality. Chaga is the first first medicinal mushroom that was known to have been named by Aboriginal peoples here in North America. So, and it's been known in Siberia, France, everywhere. It has this weird, interesting thing about it. So in World War I, in the birch forests of France, that's where they set up hospitals, okay? So you got torn up by munition, tearing your guts open, and they got to do surgery on you. What do? They pack you into a birch forest and strip off all the stuff away from you. Why? Because no bacteria or any damn thing will grow in a birch forest. They're the most pristine, sterile environment you're ever going to see. And what happens to a birch tree is it gets its own cancer that we call chaga. It's a mushroom, and it extracts everything out of that birch tree that makes that forest so pristine, all the polyphenols and everything that kill off all of the bacteria. So people that had surgeries done in birch forest didn't get the infection rates of the surgeries elsewhere. And so this is another aspect of it. And so I've had 400 plus nurses that have been on chaga through this whole thing that were working COVID wards. None of them got sick. So it's just incredible in terms of how well it does. And people that are saying, oh yeah, I started on this just out of fear and I'm never going to stop it. I feel so good. And that's pretty much the way it is. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So you've also said that you believe that fully probably 90% of the people who have taken one of these experimental vaccines is probably going to pass away. Is there any hope for any of those people? Any type of a detoxification regimen? Anything that people can do if they've taken one of them?
There is hope. There's a couple of different avenues for hope, okay? It turns out that if you go and look at clinicaltrials.gov, and go down into the COVID vaccines, they're not vaccines, but go into the products, you will find that there were 4 strengths of each of them. This was how they got around their muddying of the control group versus active group, right? And so what they did was they allowed 4 strengths, 30, 20, 10 milliliters, and placebo in each of those volumetric amounts, okay? So some people, unknown amount of people, got absolutely nothing. Some people got a 10 milliliter dose. I'm of the opinion that the 10 milliliter dose people are the ones that really didn't have any effects other than maybe for a day or so. The horror is that 20 and the 30 milliliter doses are really showing up as the problems. And now they're talking about a 100 milliliter dose in a 100 milliliter dose in a booster shot. And it's, this is a depopulation agenda. This is a kill shot now. But in any event, so the people that took these, if you were lucky and you had minimal effects, you may be able to flush out this material relatively easily. There are things you can do. You can take ivermectin to bind the spike protein and get it out of your body that they're putting in you. If your body's going to continually produce it, you'll have to have a regimen of using ivermectin intermittently to keep getting it out. You can do things like take N-acetyl cysteine, which is an amino acid that aids the lungs. It helps repair the body, and it also helps the body produce glutathione, which is what binds up all of the graphene oxide and some of the nanobots and helps those flush out. So there are things you can do to repair to some extent and to get the material out of you. And we've just recently discovered that those people that had COVID, the actual disease, this was a study that was done on people that had suffered the disease before the vaccines were produced and available. So this is like pristine data, so to speak, of the bioweapon itself. So those people that had heart inflammation from the spike protein of the disease have been greatly improved by injectable forms of vitamin C. So in my way of thinking, they'd be greatly improved even better improved by the liposomal form if their livers were not affected. The reason that this is because vitamin C is what makes up the intracellular cement. It's the stuff that binds all the cells together, and you use it up, and it's an antioxidant and does all these sort of things. So for instance, vitamin D is actually a hormone, and it's used in 3,000 processes in the body that we've identified. Vitamin C has 2,000 processes in the body that we've identified. And so if you lack these, it's not just that you're going to get scurvy, it's that your general health is going to degrade all over, right? That sort of thing. So at this stage, there are things you can do to recover. Don't take any more of the shots and start having D-dimer tests, okay? Intermittently, like maybe every 6 months. These are blood tests that you go to a doctor to get. I know you don't trust the doctors. They were the ones that gave you the damn shot and they weren't thinking, but put them to use and get a D-dimer test, because that will show if you've got blood clot material circulating in your body from little tiny microclots that are forming. If so, you may need to be put on a blood thinner. If so, it might be as mild as, one of those little baby aspirins, or it might need to be somewhat serious, because we're seeing people that are degrading and dying now from the blood clots, where they're having to have their limbs chopped off because they get so much clotting in an arm, that sort of thing, right? This is a horrific death material. Yeah. And so we're at war, and just this morning I learned of the deaths of a couple of relatives of a friend of mine.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and it's happening every day. It's, sooner or later it's going to be, this year now it's going to be happening to all of us pretty much every day as we go forward. So of those people that have been injected, the thinking on the part of the people that injected them, that had this intent, the thinking is that 90% will be dead in 10 years. And most of those will die in the next 2 or 3 years. So out of that 90%, they're thinking that the vast majority, maybe 70 or 80% of those will die in the next 2 or 3 years. And unless you do something, I believe that will be the case. But as I say, there are things that we know how to do. And there's even people that are trying things now like kidney dialysis to clean out the blood and get rid of the effects. They know it's effective with the nanoparticles and with the graphene oxide. I don't know how effective it is with the spike protein, but you do what you can.
Well, I suppose the problem there is finding a doctor or a hospital who would be willing to put you through that treatment. I mean, in my opinion, the biggest problem with coronavirus this entire time is lack of proper treatment. I mean, it seems that the doctors have one thing and one thing only. They want to give you the experimental jab. They're not interested in giving you a variety of different medicines or supplements that have been shown. At least anecdotally, we don't have the studies, I suppose. But I mean, you can see all across America. Like, I took ivermectin. As soon as I took ivermectin, I was out of the woods. Everything was great. Up until that point, for a week, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything at all. But if I had been one of those people who ended up in the hospital, because I trusted hospitals, I definitely don't, then I might have ended up on a ventilator, and then I would probably be dead right now. And there's so many cases of this all across America. I get emails all the time from people. Oh, my family member, came down with COVID. They put him in a hospital. 2 days later, he's on a ventilator. He's never waking up again. It's just so tragic.
The protocol is what's killing people, not the disease, not the bioweapon per se.
Yeah.
So here are some interesting things. So when I saw the things develop in China, I was reading. It's a tedious process. I had nothing to do. I'm trying to repair my body. I'm bored. I'm sitting out here, and I'm reading all through 2000. Last part of 2018 and 2019, I got into the deep web. It was something to do, right? I'm
Sure.
skilled. I'm not worried about it. But I'm doing translations off of interesting kinds of Chinese. So it was intriguing, but it was slow. But then I came across stuff telling me that people were dying of this new weird disease. And I thought, this is funny. And then it started becoming even more closely allied with what the sun disease descriptors were. And I thought, no, they didn't send me back for this. I was not sent back for this. So I was really resistant for a while. But one of the things that we've now discovered is that the initial death rate in China was not due to the outbreak of a virus from the lab. All right. There was an outbreak. They did release it in the military games. They did release the virus, but then from late September for sure, maybe late August, but late September for sure, through October, November, and December and January, all throughout Hubei province in China, in Guangdong and a few of the other peripheral cities on the edge, they were spraying. And they were saying that they were spraying disinfectants.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay. Yeah. And I do not believe that to be the case. I believe they were spraying aerosolized spike protein. Now that we know for sure that they had previously developed in 2015 both the idea and the technology for spraying aerosolized nanoparticle spike protein attached skin penetrating things to get in the bats. Right? Yeah. So these people are really evil. So those giant machines were not spraying disinfectants. Now, I knew this guy who was working in Hubei. He was a Chinese fellow by the name of Wu. W-U, and George, I call him George Wu. And he was an herbalist. And the reason I knew him for about 5 or 6 years was that I was buying over the course of becoming my own herbalist, trying to find out what was wrong with me and cure it, buying these rare herbs from him where he had a license to go and get them out of the northwest Chinese deserts. Anyway, and he was telling me that everything died after the spraying. He lived outside of Hubei, outside of Wuhan in Hubei province. And he said the trucks came by. I think this man is dead now, by the way. I hadn't heard from him since January of that year after the last of the spraying. But he told me that the trucks came by and sprayed that stuff in the middle of the night, and the drivers were wearing closed environment suits and couldn't see, and they bashed into one of the houses on the corner of his street there. But he said that everything died, that earthworms were dead 18 inches down in the soil in his garden, that the bacterial processes in his kimchi, he was a herbalist and he was fermenting and extracting, and he said the bacterial processes stopped. Wow. That there was no more fermentation, that his vinegar mother died. And then that was the last communication I'd heard from it. And so I thought, well, that was some really powerful disinfectant. Now I think it wasn't disinfectant. So later on in February and March of 2020, I became aware and was working with a group on the deep web that was hunting through phone records and online records of all kinds in China. And in the group, I think we collectively came to the opinion that there were about 15 million people that died in Hubei province. And we thought at that time it was from COVID. Now I think it was from them spraying the spike protein in the air.
Wow.
It was just a horrific situation. So I was really freaked out that same situation would arrive here. And then we discover, of course, that it's attached to a coronavirus. They did deliberately release it in the U.S. The Chinese CCP had agents releasing it here in North America and in Europe, but that it's extremely weak, as all coronaviruses are, against vitamin D and a proper immune system.
Yeah.
So there was never any need for the vaccine. There was never really there was a pandemic with a desire to get us to take this depopulation death shot.
Yeah. Scary stuff. All right, so I want to talk about the rise of Trump and something that I've only heard you talk about a few times, the concept of Q and your American Revolution 2.0, because I never heard you talk about Q until July 5th of this past year. Maybe you had spoken about it before, but I just missed it. But what did you see in your data set about President Trump coming onto the scene?
Well, there was nothing in there about Trump as a personality that I looked at, okay? Because here's the thing, the data sets, I would always, to get prescient language, you have to throw out conscious language. Because if I'm thinking about Trump, my thoughts are going to pollute any psychic impression that I might get, unless it's at a particular level, right? And I was getting unconscious psychic impressions. So my data sets were always stripping out all of the personality associated things that would show up in the internet.
Okay.
So it's a complex process. I would get hundreds of millions of reads and throw out 90% of it in order to filter it down to a thick syrupy mass of the prescient stuff, which I would sort of filter even further to write these old narratives. However, in that first run, associated with, and I'm talking 1997, associated with, so I got a huge amount of data in 1997 that took me almost 2 years to get through, to work out the other algorithms to process it. Okay, and then because of the tedious nature of trying something unique in software, you've got to try it, it's trial and error. Anyway, so it takes 2 years to do. Across that time, of those 2 years of processing, I became aware of this thing that I called a SOC, a self-organizing collective. Okay, that there was it was being described in the data sets as a self-organizing collective, a group of individuals that had decided to come together for a common goal and long-term common plan and process. And that this SOC at that point in 1997 was apparently active, I thought, because my data sets had picked it up. And this SOC was going to lead, as we went over all of the data from 1997 up into 2016, we're getting into the point where, so for instance, 2016, it predicted Trump would win in a landslide. And, because of the data sets at the time, this is when everybody said Hillary was for sure, blah, 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 that kind of thing, right? And even then it told me that Hillary would go missing on the night of the election. And so I knew 2 months ahead of time that she was not going to do a concession speech that way, right? And she was going to be a coward, and she would just go missing. Anyway, though, which was kind of cool. So I had some really good, spectacular hits in the language. It described this SOC as producing a period of time where there would be the American Revolution 2.0, and it was going to coincide with this global revolution that would boost us into what I called sci-fi world. And that this American Revolution 2.0 would get to the point where we would finish the work and that we would have an Americana revival that would last for hundreds of years as we went into real history, real human history. And the Americana revival was just like an aspect of the real human history. So the sci-fi world was going to be this. That was the payoff for me. Okay, so I could see in early 2020 that if I can survive the COVID, because I didn't know if it was a legit bioweapon, if it was a legit disease, or what the hell it was, right? That if we could make it through this, then okay, then we're in this data set, the data had described it very well. And in that complete set of data, we end up in sci-fi world, which we get an expedition that goes down to Antarctica that cracks open human history going back millennia, and opens up the woo for everybody to see. And then for maybe hundreds of years, lots of humanity is just fascinated and absorbed in plowing through this ancient human history and discovering who we are.
Okay, so, but how about the predictions that you had in regards to Q, the rise of Q?
Okay.
You were seeing it as the poet, I believe you said?
The poet of the revolution. Okay, so now Q is an interesting thing, all right? I didn't know that Q was part of the SOC. I didn't know that Q was not part of the SOC. I had a descriptor that came back in, maybe it's 2003. And so I was hesitant at the time because there was actually a software. I thought maybe I was picking up something in the data sets about this software called Poet that was used in artificial intelligence language, right? And after 2003, maybe 2004 and 5, it came out to the point where it was like, no, this thing is describing a poet of the revolution. And the point of the poet of the revolution was to disseminate information and act as a news conduit for real news to those people that are paying attention, and to guide those people that are going to be part of the SOC as it grows, as everybody becomes, their self-organizing collective. You can decide you're going to organize yourself with that collective at that point and contribute, right? So this was this interesting process that was going to be going forward that would result in American Revolution 2. And Q at that point was, at the point that Q emerged on the 28th of October, 2017, I was still in the process of dying, and I didn't want to say anything about it, even though I knew that this was probably the poet, right? I knew that, I knew that there were one of two occurrences that were likely to appear here. That Q was legit and was the poet, or Q was legit, and there would be a personality that would arise that we would all associate, and that person would become the poet, right? And I didn't know how it would work out at that point. Later on, I saw that Q was the poet itself, and that it met all of the criteria, because one of the things that a poet does is speaks in a particular rhyming kind of a way, a particular language of its own. Poets don't use language as the rest of us do, and we have to acknowledge that indeed Q is the epitome of that. It's the the pinnacle, and so so it met all of the criteria. And now there were things that I needed to say in 2000 when I knew I was going to survive. And in 2018 and onward, and in 2019, we get into the position where we see the sun disease, and then it's like, okay, now I see what's going on relative to Q, and that there are temporal markers being deliberately created. Okay, the future proves past. That kind of concept is an interesting thing to stumble across in my line of work, where I was intimately and deeply associated with time and how events move through time, because it told me that there was someone that was engineering something here. Now, I had to be very careful that with my potential for some level of advanced knowledge of how this shit is done, I didn't want to pollute anything that they were doing. I didn't want to accidentally say something that would disrupt it, right? And so the only thing I made comments on throughout all that period of time was that no, there were no sealed indictments in the PACER system. There were not hundreds of thousands of sealed indictments waiting to be pulled out and arrests made and I was always specific about in the PACER system, because that's the normal federal court system, and the federal courts are not going to handle this, right? Yeah. It's got to go into the military to deal with this. And then as Q develops, you see that, oh, it's not as was touted by the mainstream media at all about the USA elections and Trump, really, right? And then it becomes obvious that certain things are appearing. And then the logical thing at that point is that you go and you do research, and it's like, oh, okay, this is that concept that I came across in 1967 that had been developed as a result of Truman. So in 1966 and 67, my father had to go through the War College, Leavenworth, Virginia. This is like to get an advanced degree in war. He was going for his PhD, right? And so it's boring in Kansas. There's nothing to do but dodge tornadoes, really. And so I got into his homework. I read all of his books, right? When he was out the school, I would read the ones that he left. And I came across this idea that they'd come up with in Truman's time. And it's like, okay, now, of course, older, I understand 1947. No wonder they came up with this idea in 1947, right? The idea is what happens, and it was put in this weird little thing, and I was fascinated with it because why should I see this in a ancillary document to the War College, to material, right? Which is all about logistics and moving stuff and, all different kinds of aspects of war. And in there's this, the psychological war, of course, and then within that is this ancillary little volume that says, what happens if a space alien comes down and takes over the president? And they say, and takes over the House and the Senate and the courts and the school system. And they say, what do we do under those circumstances? Is it possible to have a plan? Could you discover this? Mainly it was questions at that time, but there were hints of what we now call devolution. All right, that there's really only one easy way or one sure way to do it. Not easy, incredibly not easy, but it is sure and certain to do it this way. And so, and it was specifically, and it had been, on there, it said basically from the desk of, or considered about something. I mean, I got the impression now that I was reading that Harry Truman was involved in this, right? And so this was 20 years past 47 and 67. And so they were thinking about it then. And it's like, okay, now I see what's going on. And then other hints tell me that Trump was asked to occupy a role within a role, within a role, within a role. Okay, so he's one of those enigmas wrapped up in a puzzle kind of thing.
Right.
Because he was asked to be president, but that was not the role he was really playing. He was asked to be a specific president, to cause specific things to happen, such that the space aliens would be drawn into a specific path in order that we might find ourselves here now, progressing as we are. And so this was genius in a level of thinking that is deep beyond most people's ability to even comprehend. That, what do you mean he wasn't the president? No, he was the president, and he won massively, even though they cheated and reduced his win. But he was asked to be the president, and he was asked to lose the second time, but not lose. I mean, the whole thing is sculptured and planned, and they're pretty devious guys, and it's a pretty good plan.
Absolutely. So what you just said there about the space aliens, are you just using that as a placeholder for the cabal itself? Okay, that's what I thought.
No. Here's the thing. I'm actually personally, because I'm a woo person, and I see non-human things occurring within the cabal and non-human things in activities in the CCP, for instance, how they do things, and non-human overlays being put on humanity. I think that there is a space alien influence, and it cannot be discounted. Okay, but I put a label up there of the bug. Okay, it's a non-human space alien, non-humanoid, non-thinking being the same way we think, and I put this label up there as the enemy. This is so convenient. Okay, because you will find, for instance, so one of our enemies here, one of the overlays on humanity that is not human in nature, is this central bank. The central bank of all of the countries produces the central bank and warfare model. And central banks have gotten us into killing humans for the past few hundred years. And they repeatedly do engineer us into world wars. And this is not a natural human arising thing. We don't instantly go to a new country as soon as we land, set up a central bank, right? So these kind of things I find to be alien in nature, and they are evil, and they're doing evil. But because I use this placeholder of these individuals being mentally captured by this space alien, it eliminates the interhuman prejudicial stuff that potentially exists. So follow me on this. The space alien comes down and takes over people, and it sets up circumstances that naturally arises. It harmonizes with that, but it pushes the circumstances. It naturally arises a central banking structure, and the first central banks show up. They start causing nations to fight each other, French, British, and so on. We come up to World War I. They cause the wars to become more global. Now, it would be, and they engineer this in such a way that we don't ever see the bug engineering it, right? Mm-hmm. So we only see the people that have been captured. It is easy for us to turn our hatred, because of the xenophobia that exists within us, to those people, and thus castigate all people that are associated with them as the bad guys. And that's not pertinent. That's not the way it should be. This leads to pogroms. Okay, this leads to, because Jewish people are associated with finance, and finance is one of the tools that is being used to oppress us. Mm-hmm. Jewish people are going to get shit because some of their people and some of their individuals have been taken over by the bug. Yep. And this is, so this eliminates interhuman hatreds building up over stuff that is not necessarily even really interhuman. And I cannot be convinced at this stage that this is a naturally arising condition within humanity itself, because I see humans working out things differently when left to their own devices, right? Right. And so within this, the space alien placeholder, the variable name of the bug, serves many different purposes. It gives us a goal to go and look for it too, and that way we're always looking beyond humanity, and we won't settle in on something that will create this, intergenerational warfare that is what the bug desires. It is desirous of us dying. Okay, now so as a paranoid schizophrenic in my early youth, I was hit by it very hard. In order to cure myself or kill myself because of the torture of paranoid schizophrenics, live with this thing called a fugue state. Yes. You don't know when it's going to happen to you. You can't control it. And it happens because you have the ability within your body to oxidize adrenaline more rapidly, and it builds up, and you get oxidized adrenaline is called adrenochrome. Mm-hmm. And so I naturally produce adrenochrome, as in all paranoid schizophrenics do. And it causes you to go into these fugue states. It's a very powerful psychedelic. It's not quite a psychedelic like those psychedelics that you take in externally, but it has many of the same effects. I came across the notion of external psychedelics and what was going on with me because I was reading idiots like Sigmund Freud at age 11, trying to understand what was going on in my mind. I could barely read. I was dyslexic. It took me until age 10 to figure out how to actually read. And then once I did start learning to read, I started wanting to know what's going on in my mind. So I got these books. My mother was a nurse, and she had some of these things sitting around. And so I read these books, and I discovered some of the processes that were affecting me. When it became possible, I started taking psychedelics with the idea that I would either cure myself or kill myself. And I was able to treat myself out of the condition of the worst of the effects of the schizophrenia. And I taught myself to think out of it. But because of this, I've got an appreciation for this being that I call the bug. And that's because in these psychedelic trips, I'm convinced it was because I'm a schizophrenic. I was able to easily go to this place that's called hyperspace. Mm-hmm. And people like Joe Rogan will talk about these DMT trips where they get to go there for 10 minutes. I could be there for hours on mescaline or psilocybin mushrooms. Mm-hmm. And you'd be pulled back, and you could just go there. It's difficult to describe, but it was easy for me, easier than other people.
I'm a former mycologist, so I'm well aware of the aspect of the trip itself. Also, DMT. I'm completely sober at this point in my life, but one time in the past. But it's so interesting because I've had friends who developed schizophrenia. Close friends from childhood, and those people essentially don't exist anymore because who they were before those fugue states began, it was completely erased. So the fact that
this was like a mid-20s onset or late
yes, early 20s.
Yeah, that's the terrible time.
Yeah, and almost it's happened and at least to at least two different friends, and both times, there was this aspect of extraterrestrial contact that became part of the overarching, I guess, hallucinations that they were having.
That's not okay. So hallucinations.
Well,
I'm a sort of a stickler for language. Those aren't the hallucinations, right?
Okay.
Hallucinations is where the brick starts forming patterns, and the patterns start moving and shifting. Okay, that's the hallucination.
Okay.
So schizophrenics do not hallucinate beings. All right, they are in contact with those beings. Whether you believe it or not is immaterial, but it is not a hallucination, nor is it a delusion. I've dealt with delusional people, and I've dealt with lots of people with all kinds of mental illness. I started doing crisis center calls when I was 16. So I was a volunteer at a phone call, and I would work the night shift, and I worked from 9 at night until about 4 in the morning, night after night after night for years at a crisis line, talking people down out of bad trips, because I had that ability, because I discovered that I was good at psychedelics, because I knew this. I knew fugue states since a very early age, and psychedelics were, like most of them, the synthetics were, LSD and that kind of stuff, just not going to get you anywhere. But I was able to do that, to talk the people out of it. So I do understand. And also the terrible part is the early 20s, and then there's another group of people that get this in their late 30s, early 40s. It is feasible to get out of the schizophrenic state, and I do that myself and it's going to sound weird, but a big part of schizophrenia control is the appropriate optimal vitamin B complexes. You have to get your vitamin Bs balanced. And you can literally control the production of adrenochrome. You just don't produce it the way you used to, and the fugue states go away. Then you can recover your personality.
All right. So something you just said right there was exactly what I wanted to get at. Yeah, the difference between, a hallucination or, just a vision, something that's not really there, and the actual presence of some extra dimensional being that is coming into contact with you. So yeah, you just confirmed it for me. I mean, that's what I was thinking.
Let me describe it. Let's take a minute there. Okay.
Yeah.
This was the shocking part for me, was that I could go with these psychedelics. LSD didn't do it. It was okay. It was mainly psychological, but I could go with these psychedelics to this hyperspace. I could be there. I could interact with minds that were not human. Okay, so I'm talking to you. There's a humanness quality here that is not like you talking to your dogs.
Right.
And you talk to your dogs, and your dogs talk back to you. You communicate with them. Imagine communicating with a being that is not a human, that is not an animal, that is communicating to you mentally. And so I actually, the very first time I got into hyperspace, I popped into what I later came to realize was a laboratory. And there was a bug in this laboratory, and the bug looked like an ant to my perception there. I did not know at that time, but I was spherical. Okay, when you pop into hyperspace, you don't have the body you have now. You're a sphere. You have your impressions, you have everything coming in, but you don't have a regular body. You can be taught, as I was, to extrude your body out of that to use your consciousness to reform your body in hyperspace. It takes a lot of energy, but it was worth doing for a couple of reasons. But anyway, so I talked to minds that were not human. And this was the most real experience that I've ever encountered. It was as real as the times that I've died, and much more real than it is talking to you now, much more real than anything here in the materium. And it taught me so much that I was able to, over the course of those psychedelic trips in the up through into the 80s, but it taught me so much that over the course of the 90s, I was able to digest all those experiences, get lots of patents in software and other devices for unique knowledge, and create my software that predicted all of this stuff that got us to this point here. And I created a life and fed my family and all of this kind of thing, and was successful based on the knowledge from those psychedelic trips. That's my entire predictive linguistic thing came from that understanding that I was given there, because I happened to have have this experience. Now, did universe cause me to have that experience of coming into the bug's laboratory? Hyperspace is not like that guy's laboratory. That laboratory was an empty, sort of spherical, amorphous kind of a space with just the bug and some stuff he was messing with, and then myself in there. And as soon as he threw me out, I was in real hyperspace, where the air is talking at you and the ground's coming on up to kiss your feet and all of this kind of thing, right? And the water is dancing with time flowing through it. And you just, you're just amazed. But but they have enough power, those bugs, to push all of that stuff out and create a calm environment in hyperspace. And I learned a lot of stuff in hyperspace. And one of the things that I learned was that the bugs don't like us because we leak psychic impressions constantly out of our vagus nervous system. That it's just like a broadcasting antenna, and Earth is just a giant irritation of psychicness, coming out noisy thing for them. And that's one of the reasons that they want to kill us off, is just for their own convenience of not having us irritate them. So this may be a statement of a delusional construct, but the perception of it is not a delusion. That was a perceived, life experience on these drugs. And I got to the point where I could take people there that were not schizophrenics under certain conditions. So it's possible to actually get people to go into hyperspace and interact with them there if you do it right. It's very difficult and dangerous to those people that are not accustomed to it, because we're talking 25 wet grams, or we're talking 9 grams of mescaline, fresh crystal. So huge somatic levels for non-schizophrenics. On the other hand, a schizophrenic like myself, I can microdose and get there.
Wow, really? Okay, wow. All right, so I've experienced quite a bit of what you just described there, because I don't want to get into it too much, because I don't usually talk about this stuff on the air, but, back in my day, when I was experimenting with things, psychedelics were a huge part of that. And I definitely know that hyperspace that you're talking about, crystalline rainbow structures all around, and just massive amounts of universal language and knowledge coming to you, all at once. And then everything kind of reforms around you, one atom at a time, and you're back on planet Earth. So, all right. Well, Clif, we've been here for about an hour, and generally on my live shows, I do an hour with the guest, and then we have an hour of calls. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do calls tonight, but I'm hoping that in the future you might be able to join us for an actual live show, and then maybe do some calls with the audience. Do you think that you could ever?
Sure, we can. Yeah, we can work that out. The timing is a problem because of so many of my responsibilities, but sure, I don't have much of a problem with that. So
okay, awesome. Well, I always like to give the guest the last word. What do you want people to take away from this?
Oh boy. We're not screwed, okay? It's the worst of times at this moment, but it's also the best of times because things are changing. Out in the woo, it's very much like a description of the Tao, right? That you hear, and so we are able to see the mountains that we're going to have to climb. And so we know we're coming out of the valley of this now, and things are changing and things are going to get better. We have a really horrific time ahead of us, but it is the survival of that toughens us up, right? It's like coming through the psychedelics, you learn a lot, but going into it, I bet you within those first 5 minutes, you knew you were going to die. Your body was going to disintegrate, and there was just not going to be anything left of you. And without that disintegration, the rest of it wouldn't have occurred. So we've got to have the disintegration for the sci-fi world. Unfortunately, that's it now. But this is a great war. This American Revolution 2 is the beginning of Global Revolution 1. And man, that's going to be fantastic.
All right, awesome. Well, Clif, thanks again for being here. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time.
Okay.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Clif High. Don't go anywhere because I am going to be right back. Just a couple of programming announcements. Don't forget, if you want to support the show, you can do that in the links below. I'm hoping that everybody here has subscribed to my audio podcast as well as all of the various channels on all of these different platforms where I put these videos out. So if you miss it one place, then hopefully you won't miss it someplace else. We are going to be taking calls, so without further ado, here is Red Pill 78 live on the other side of this video. All right, here we are. I wasn't lying. Let me just go ahead and stop the show. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Looked like people did. We'll go ahead and take some calls, and we'll see what people want to talk about, what you're thinking. You know, I just want to say, I feel like I completely agree with Clif's summation about the way we're going, the direction we're headed. I know a lot of people have a lot of anxiety about it, but I too feel that you can't build something in the ashes of the old world until you've actually torn it down. I have no anxiety about where we're going and what we're doing and how this is all going to work out. You know, I see so many people just so scared, living in that fear of what's going to happen. And I also wanted to address something that I said in Occam's Razor the other day. I should say this, I should preface this by saying that when I'm talking on these long-form live shows, I may make statements that don't make sense when you don't consider them within the context of why I was initially saying them. Such as when I mentioned the tactics of Gandhi and the people of India when they defeated the British and kicked them out. I said so in relation to my call for people to get involved peacefully right now while you can, because chances are a vast majority of people that are watching the shows are not doing what I've suggested: going to your school board meetings, running for school board, becoming a precinct committeeman, running for public office, organizing marches, organizing in-person meetups with people. There is a lot we can do peacefully to try to take our country back before it gets to a situation where things are hot. And I certainly hope that most people didn't believe that I was suggesting that in the wake of increasing violence from people on the left and other groups, if they're committing violence against you, no, of course, I'm not inviting people to sit down and do a full lotus and just allow the butt of a rifle to hit you in the back of the head. I'm really surprised that anybody would think that that's what I was suggesting, but at least one person did, and that's why I'm mentioning it, because they didn't leave their emails, so I couldn't respond to them. All right, let me go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and throw the information for the call up on the screen. This is not it. Let me edit it, and then hopefully we'll get some interesting calls. Whoa, that was not right. Hold on. That wasn't how it was supposed to be. There we go. Get rid of that, and get rid of all this. And there we go. Oh, that's so much better. So much better. All right. And I also think that Clif's word choice for certain things, it doesn't mean that you should throw the baby out with the bathwater. He says aliens. Other people might say extra-dimensional beings. Other people might say demons. Other people might say fallen angels. So I think that people end up talking about the same things often, but because you have a different choice of language, that maybe it turns out to sound different, and people don't necessarily get that. But yeah, I think my biggest takeaway here is don't live in fear about what we're going through. We are tearing down the old world, and we are building up something much, much greater in its stead. So there is the information in the chats. You guys, actually, I think I forgot to drop it over in Odyssey. Let me drop it on Odyssey. Thank you to Chops ITMC. I will read the super chats of sorts over on Odyssey once we get to the end of the show. Same with all of the donations on DLive and on Foxhole. Appreciate that, guys. Let me do something here so I can drop the Zoom link into the chat. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Sorry, I've got to do this on 2 different computers, so it makes it a little complicated. I really wish I could have a producer. Someday, guys, I will be in a studio, and I will have someone there to help. I was thinking about this earlier. All the people watching Dan Bongino and stuff like that. Like, Dan is really good at what he does, but that's because he doesn't have to worry about all of this stuff behind the scenes. Okay, here we go. There is the Zoom link. Here is the Zoom link. Here is the Zoom link. And here is the Zoom link. All right, looks like we do have our caller, our very first. We've got 2 of them. All right. Let's see. Oh, Belushi. Good stuff. And then Hang 10 Alien Surfer. How appropriate. All right. Waiting for Belushi's audio to connect. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to have Clif back. What's up, Belushi? Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, man. Great interview.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I really like Clif. I've been following him a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm jumping on a show in about 10 minutes, but I just wanted to say that and say, and being a psychedelic warrior for 20 years now, actually longer than that. But what Clif was talking about with his schizophrenia and how he sort of healed himself and he went on that journey, like, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to figure this out. Mm-hmm. I had that same exact thing. I was a very angry child.
Yeah.
I saw things how they were when I was young, and I had a real problem with authority, and I had a real disdain for things that I didn't agree with in terms of, like, why is it structured this way? Why do these people tell these people what to do? Why am I constantly having to uphold these sort of rules and regulations of things in school? And, I think the first time I took LSD, I was in 8th grade, but that set off a journey that I was able to go to all those places that Clif was talking about. It helped me get a grasp and an understanding of how basically outside of humanity that the universe is all connected to us.
Absolutely.
Some of those blasts when he talks about, when you bleed between dimensions and when he's talking about the water has sound energy in it, and he's talking about the wind and how it's kissing your feet, that's how interconnected some of these higher dimensional beings are. But the bug or the vril, I'm not quite sure what he's referring. Like, I know the bug, what he's referring to. I'd like to ask him that question.
He's using it as kind of an all-encompassing term. Like I was saying, some people would say fallen angels, some people would say demons, some people would say actual evil space aliens. Some people would say reptilians. I mean,
right.
It's something that kind of encapsulates the idea that there is something not human that we are fighting against. And I feel like most everybody in the chat would agree that there is some other power structure that exists out there that we're fighting against. And however you specifically define it, I feel like that's up to you. I don't get too hung up in the details. I think because we've got so many people in the chat, you know what I'm saying? Everybody has a different opinion about the way things work and about how the universe is. And to what you said about taking psychedelics and allowing it to kind of, hone you as a person. I can totally relate to that. I was also very angry as a child. I had to, at a certain point, I had to make a conscious decision. Do I want to be somebody who is like 100% all the time ruled by that anger, ruled by, the frustration of the things that I can't control and whatever these structures are around me that I have to place myself within, or, and then when I took psychedelics, it allows you to like separate your id from your ego and you realize how interconnected everything is and how fruitless it is to stay focused on those things that you can't control. I mean, like, you have this incredible world that is directly in front of you, and that you can reach out and touch at any time. And there is this intrinsic interconnectedness between everything. And until you have taken that journey, I don't know that anybody really understands that.
Yeah, you just nailed it, Red Pill. And the other thing to keep in mind, and I'm sure you've got people lining up behind me, but the other thing to keep in mind is once you push through that and you separate that ego state and you understand the interconnectedness, it puts you on a sort of different path of okay, now how am I going to interact in this dimension, in this environment,
right?
And how am I going to live my life moving forward. It took me several years and experiments to get to that point. But the fear that's associated with allowing yourself to allow your spirit or your mind to go there, to actually grasp these concepts, is the barrier. Mm-hmm. And I see that so much in society because fear is driving all of this. But I do like that Cliff, because I've watched a lot of his projections and timelines, and I love his social listening that he does. But that he's like, we're not screwed. And I'm like, okay, good. Cliff sees it too. Okay. I agree with you.
Yeah. We're totally not screwed. Yeah.
We're going through a near-death experience, and we have to, I've been saying this is a good thing that all these things need to come down because, in order to build a new, at the point you were making, I've been sort of pounding that as well there in the world.
How can you realize what needs to change unless you expose it and bring it out into the light? And until you see the machinations of this evil force that we're fighting against, it used to be behind the shadows. Many people were certain of what they were doing behind the scenes, but then they would present their public countenance. And that's what many other people would say, well, this is the truth because this is what I'm being told. Now, they're not hiding anything. They're doing it openly out in the light. And as a result, people can wake up to that realization. And that means that we can galvanize together as a society, as humankind, to change that and to move into something much, much better.
100%, man. Loved the interview. I hope you get Cliff back so we can do a call in and have a conversation with him. I'd love to.
We're already lining it up, so don't worry. He'll definitely be
awesome. Back. All right, Zach. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, brother. Good to see you, man.
All right, man.
Peace. All right, good stuff. And I also wanted to address something that other people I saw say in the chat. I will go on record and say that I think psychedelics can be powerful medicine and they can help people in invaluable ways psychologically. But when I say that I'm sober and I don't partake in any drugs, I don't partake in any mind-altering substances like that. And it's largely because I don't feel that I need to take that journey anymore. But it's also because there are plenty of mind-altering substances which would simply lead me back down the path that I don't want to be on. I've grown as a person. I've moved on in my life. I don't need drugs and alcohol or even psychedelics or, I wouldn't even take pain medication. Okay, that's how far I take it. Yes, I drink coffee. Yes, I vape nicotine, but they are not altering my perception of consciousness in the same way that all of the other things that I have taken in my life would do. So here we are, and now it's a different world, and we're going to keep going through it. We've got Hang 10 Alien Surfer coming in next. Oh, Hang 10 Alien Surfer. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yeah, you sound great. Sound great. So
all right.
What'd you think about the interview?
I'm jealous that you got to have such a deep and meaningful conversation with Cliff because I've talked to Cliff before, but it's mostly just, hey, I didn't get your report. Can I get the link or whatever? I've been following him for like 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And or so. I've been wanting to have a really good conversation with him for a while, and it's always good to see other people having that conversation. And I haven't actually heard from him in a while because I haven't been on YouTube.
Oh, here's the thing. He's publishing on BitChute now because he was getting censored. So he moved his regular videos over to BitChute. Just follow him on BitChute and you won't miss a thing.
I haven't been on BitChute lately either because BitChute's been giving me some issues with my own videos uploading. But I haven't been on either of the platforms lately. Okay. And plus, there's so much to watch on Foxhole. It's just hard to get away.
I understand. Believe me. Yeah. So. There is no shortage of content out there right now. Which is a good thing because it's a testament to the fact that so many people are getting awake, getting involved, and they want to have a voice in what we're doing, and it's sorely needed.
Yeah, and not to mention all the other content other than the stuff that awakens you on Foxhole, just the just the hangout shows like Belushi, and where you can actually get away from it. So that's a refreshing thing too. At the end of the day, sometimes you just need to wind down.
For sure, man. For sure. Yeah, this stuff is heavy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with allowing yourself a little bit of escapism.
But I wanted to ask you how you felt having that conversation, because I know you've probably been a fan of Clif for a while too. And how was that? Was it a bit of a fanboy moment for you?
I'll tell you what was a fanboy. So I definitely was very geared up to have that conversation. Clif is somebody I've always wanted to interview, and I feel like there have been times where I went to reach out to him and it just didn't happen. And generally, the only time I have a problem having people like booked for the show is if something happens last minute and then they can't make it, or I've got something personal in my life. So I have like a list of people that I want to get on the show, that I've been trying to get on the show. I have people all the time that I'm like in active conversations with, trying to get them scheduled. And Clif was just somebody I had never actually made contact with. What was a fanboy moment for me was when I emailed him, and he emailed me back almost immediately. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I know Red Pill 78. Sure, I'd love to come on your show." And I was like, "Oh, you know who I am? Wow, cool. Okay, sweet." That was, just the idea that he would even be aware of who I was. That was the fanboy moment. That was really cool.
Oh, that's cool. And no, he was an appropriate guest for your show. It's
Absolutely.
like, and finding appropriate guests for shows is a difficult thing, especially for me with my show. I'm trying to find appropriate guests, but not everybody drinks beer. Not everybody's into beer.
Right.
So, it's like, why would they watch Three Beermen? And Clif has actually told me he doesn't drink beer.
Yeah.
When I tried to get him on my other show, my Bitcoins and Beer show that I used to do. So and that's the same reason why I would never ask you to be on my show. But
right. I understand.
Canadian Patriot is a funny guy, and I'd love to have him on my show, but he doesn't drink beer either. So that's yeah, it was a great interview. It's great hearing Clif again. Sorry if there's any background noise. I have a plane flying over me right now, but yeah, and I can't wait until you have another interview with him and we can actually call in and talk to him.
Right. Yeah.
And I'll tell you the truth, Friday nights has been so busy for me. I haven't had a chance to call into your show much.
Yeah.
And
it's been a minute.
There's been another guest I really want to talk to about the New California.
Oh yeah, Paul Preston.
Yeah, I always catch your show the next day, and there's so many questions I have for him too, because I'm one of those that live in
You're in the belly of the beast. Yeah.
Yeah, in the belly of the beast.
Yeah.
I mean, really in the belly of the beast. I live in Hollywood, so that's that's right there. But there's so many questions I have for him that I never get a chance to. I'm glad I got through tonight. I'm glad I got to talk to you.
Absolutely.
I know you probably got people lining up, and really good talking to you.
Absolutely, same, brother. Paul's going to be on the show again soon too, because we need an update on what's happening there. Especially after we just had the debacle that was the recall election. So
exactly with Newsom, and that was just such a blow for a lot of us here. I got to tell you, it was actually a really big blow.
Well, I can understand. I mean, I was sad for you.
Almost almost biggest blow when the resident got in. It was almost like that. It was like, wow. Yeah. It's like we're all, But, sure. I'll let you get to your other guests, and thank you for taking my call. And
anytime, brother.
Like I said, I can't wait to see Clif back on your show and hopefully be able to talk to him too.
Right on, man. Keep your eyes open.
I will.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Stay safe.
All right.
Oh, and our Australian correspondent, Viper X Crypto, is our next caller. Thank you very much. Ooh, look at that. Look at this. Viper, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, buddy. 5 by 5. What's going on?
Excellent. Well, it's just another day at the office here in Australia, the prison colony, as you know. How are you and your guests?
Doing well. Looks like the audience is doing all right as well. And I feel like everybody's riding high tonight.
That's lovely. I've been chatting to people in the what is it? The Twitch, I think it is. Yes. So.
Yes. Twitch is great. We had a lot of people in Twitch tonight. When last time I looked at Rumble, we had it was like 3,200 people on Rumble. There was about 700 people on D Live. Let me see, over 700 people over on Rumble as well. So yeah, good people here.
You've got a big audience. Very well done, Red Pill. I've been following you from the beginning. At first, I didn't know who you were, and I'm like, who's this person? Because I'm from Aikun, and we're very wary, as you know. But it's all worked out very well, and I think you're gonna be a star, and you are a star anyway.
Well, thanks, dude.
So
I appreciate that for sure. I mean, obviously, everybody on Aikun and Achan doing the work. I mean, that was. It's incredible to watch, especially when you see people pick up a thread and start digging, and everybody starts kicking in. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
I saw some of the smartest people I've ever seen in the world, and I like to think I'm a pretty smart person as well, pretty nerdy, and I'm the guy that does all that gematria, and I'm known as the number fairy, but we won't get into that.
Right.
So, no, well, not here anyway. We won't do that. So now we'll focus on my musical career. But I'm not here to talk about that necessarily right now. I just wanted to give you an update about what's happening on the ground here in Australia.
Please.
Now, you understand that Victoria has had some pretty bad scenes, and we've had the Premier, Dan Andrews, just announced that authorized employees are now going to have to be vaccinated. So that's like, freight people, construction workers, doctors and nurses, all those kind of people. So they're already protesting. Teachers were protesting. So if you go to rebelnews.com, again, I'm not promoting them, but there's a lot of good information there. Their journalist just got arrested, and his security guard just got arrested.
Really? I was watching clips of him just a couple of days ago at a protest that he was at.
No, they're just being flogged all the time, and they're in the Supreme Court now just because, like, Avi Yamini has just been taken to the Supreme Court. He's taken to the Supreme Court because his security guard, Daniel, was beaten up by police. He's a professional security guard. He's doing everything properly. He's got all the licenses. He's literally protecting a journalist that's doing the right thing. But because, of course, it's a conservative journalist, they really want to target this guy.
Yeah.
And they don't like him. So that's a really good source of information. And there's a few other people. I also like a couple of guys. I won't exactly say their names, but you can go see the Crow House is one.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I love him too. Yeah.
So you can go and check that out. His latest video is very interesting. People are getting beaten up, Red Pill. They're getting literally their heads smashed into the concrete. Wow. Innocent people. Nobody knows what's going on. And for everyone that says, you shouldn't have given up your guns and all that kind of stuff, people who can legally own guns in Australia can still legally own guns. People in the country still have lots and lots of guns. It's very, very restricted, but there are more guns in Australia than before the Port Arthur massacre. So let's not confuse everything, because I see this constantly in the US media.
I do too. Yeah.
I'm a full supporter of the Second Amendment, but Australians are not people that are going to go and pick up their guns and create an uprising. It's just not that kind of place, bro.
Yeah.
So you must understand that we are going to get this done. It's going to be done peacefully. There's already things moving. If you've seen in New South Wales, this is fantastic news that Gladys Berejiklian has resigned because she has an ICAC inquiry, which is Independent Commission Against Corruption, I believe it stands for.
Nice.
And that's the highest level corruption investigators. And I know these people because for the equivalent in Queensland, the Criminal Corruption Commission, I've spoken to them before face to face. I won't get into that.
Yeah.
So I know what these people are about. They're about investigating corruption in the police, in the politicians. They want information, and she's had to resign because of that. And I think that it was either going to be that or something else worse is going to come out, because she's actually, this is what I understand, and I don't know for sure, but I understand, this is what I've read, is that Gladys Berejiklian is being blackmailed by Pfizer lobbyists, and that's why she's taken everything that's happened with the lockdowns and all of the, you can't have your freedom until you're vaccinated. So now there's going to be, she's just said, but just before she was taken out, that if you're not vaccinated, then you're not going to get your freedom back. There's going to be rules for one and rules for another. And
is that, I saw that clip. So that's who you're talking about? She just had to resign because she's got a corruption investigation? That is such good news.
Correct. So she's going down. She's gone. She's going down bad. But who's she going to be replaced with? It's like Andrew Cuomo being replaced by that other Nazi satanic lady from New York. So you just don't know who's coming. These people are all, dare I say, Freemasonic, DeMolay people. They're all placed. Everyone in Australia is corrupt. And Ricardo Bosi, I don't know if you saw that video of him speaking from the Australia One Party. That's a very important video for you to see. And he's just telling it straight. He's a former Australian Special Forces soldier. And he just said, look, things are going to happen. And I think things are going to happen in Australia before December. I don't like to be that date fairy.
No, date fag.
You know me. I'm already the number fairy. You know that. So we won't go there. But I think things are going to happen by December here. So I'm going to make a tentative call to see what will happen. So there's a little bit of hope. Everyone's rising up. We have teachers protesting now. We have a whole heap of medical professionals being fired because they're not being vaccinated. And in Victoria, now they're coming out with very serious vaccination rules. So you're basically not going to be able to work anymore if you're not vaccinated, especially if you're an authorized, like firefighters, police, nurses, aged care, education. That'll include childcare, which affects my industry because I recruit people in those industries. So there's a lot of pushback from people on the ground that don't want to go into this, and the entire country is fighting back.
That's exactly what we need. We need to see this. You know, I mean, this is the only way it's going to happen. I mean, to your point earlier, you know, yes, I get so annoyed when people are like, why don't people just do something? Okay, so the person saying that, I don't see you rushing headlong into a line of stormtroopers with your AR-15, okay? Or you telling the Australians that they just need to take over or something like that. It's not realistic. And they're
glowing.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
glowing, Zach.
Glowies. This is the way to do it for everybody, okay? Every person, every citizen to stand up and say, I've had enough. I'm not going to comply. We're not going to go through with this. All right. If enough people do, then they'll shut down the medical industry. They'll shut down the trucking industry. They'll shut down the construction industry because there won't be anybody left. Okay. Of course, some people have already complied, but I don't think nearly as many people as they claim have.
Do you know what I personally think? This is my opinion. Is my opinion. Okay, please don't arrest me.
Sure.
I think that 90% of these people that have been vaccinated are going to be dead in the next 5 years.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. Clif predicts within 10 years, and I actually wanted to mention this. I saw somebody over on Twitch, I guess, calling Clif out for his prediction that, you know, many people would die from the Rona. You know, so here's how I perceive it. Maybe, okay, so what is the vaccine? It is the elites, it is the cabal's response to the Rona. So whether people die from Corona proper or from their decision to take the vaccine, which is a response and it only exists because of Corona, it's the same thing to me. All right, this is all one giant travesty, whether it's the virus itself, the release by the Chinese, or the response from the vaccine industry and the elites telling people that they have to take it. Those people are going to die one way or the other, but it's all because of one thing, and that is the advent of coronavirus. Does that make sense?
Yes, this is so serious here. We've never been faced with this sort of thing in Australia before. Everyone was caught very much unawares and blindsided. I've known that this is going to happen for probably 6 years. So I don't like to be vindicated, Red Pill. That's the thing that I really don't like the most. I don't care about that now. And everyone that I know understands that everything that I said originally was correct. And I've had people try to commit me because I thought I was crazy, and I'm not crazy. So now that it's such a serious situation, and we're at the point where we don't have an option in government. We don't have a Donald Trump here. We don't have any of these people stepping up. We don't have a Second Amendment. We don't have a Bill of Rights. We don't have a Declaration of Independence. And we are completely occupied, and they are testing their new world order here in Australia and seeing what we will do. They're doing it state by state. They started in Victoria. They went to New South Wales. These are arguably the two most populous states in Australia. So once they control and subdue those two states, there won't be anywhere else really to go. I live in Brisbane, and I'm just waiting for 6 to 8 weeks for all of this to come here now. Do you know what it's like wearing a mask in 30-degree 80% humidity?
I couldn't do it.
That's coming, and it's already hot now, and I'm starting to not even wear it on the bus, and I'll get in trouble here because I'm on the record. I don't give a flying. It's one of these things. We must stand up. We must say no. I'm saying this to everybody. I work with vaccinated people. Sometimes I feel sick, and I feel like I have symptoms of this COVID thing simply because I'm hanging around with people that are shedding.
Right.
So that's just my opinion. I'm not a doctor or anything like that. I'm a humble anon and autist. I've been fighting this war for 6 years. I've been doing my coding and gematria and all the rest of it even before anyone else was. And now I'm doing this music. And the reason why I'm doing it, Red Pill, is because multi-level mimetic warfare is very effective. Right. And a picture speaks 1,000 words, a meme speaks 1,000 pictures, even more. And when you put it together, moving with special effects and entraining music, which is what my electronic dance music is, with the messages that are sent from positive sources like President Trump and President Eisenhower and President Kennedy, then this is how we reach the young people. So this is being timed especially for release around the time Electric Daisy Carnival is about to start, when Patriots Force is going to have their Patriot Roundup. Is that what it's called?
Yes. The Patriot Double Down.
Right. So I've sent them and their DJ a free download of the WAV files, and yourself and Craig. And I don't know where to donate money to you, bro. I don't have a lot, but I want to give you something anyway, because you're helping me to promote my platform. But at the end of the day, if you can promote awareness that make Australia great again means make America great again. That's why the MAGA is very similar. We are one. We are brothers in arms, and there's no way that we're getting out of this without supporting each other. You are our security umbrella. We should never have got in bed with the Chinese in the first place as our number one trading partner. That was a mistake. We saw them at ports. They built military grade airstrips here in Western Australia and beyond, and we are in trouble. So we need your help. I don't know if we need sanctions to be put on the Australian government leaders, not the people, okay? But there needs something to be done. So if anyone's going to come and do an intervention in Australia, it's going to be the United States military, the Marines that come and do a cycle in Darwin. And I'm personally inviting an Australian citizen, a sovereign here, on behalf of the people, to invite those patriots in the United States military to come and free our country, as you did from the Japanese in the Battle of the Coral Sea in World War II. So there's that, and that's it.
All right, brother. Well, listen, if you do want to donate, just redpill78news.com/donate, and you can do it right there on my website. But listen, man, stay strong, and I have not been able to listen to the music yet, and it's something that keeps popping into my head, and I promise you tonight after the show I will have it downloaded, and it'll be in my music catalog, and we'll be listening to it. But you're absolutely right. Mimetic warfare is very powerful, and they have controlled the entertainment industry from all corners for far too long. It's time for us to get involved, and that's one of the reasons why I love doing these shows. All right, Vector, thanks a lot for your call, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Okay, I guess he's gone. Well, thank you. Appreciate you. Listen, we have one Rumble chat over here, and I'm going to say it because they disappear. Renee P. says, none of this would have been possible without voter fraud. They didn't just cheat their own states, they cheated a nation, and everything that has happened since the election is on their heads. It certainly is. All right, we've got Jason coming in next. All right, Jason B., good to see you, buddy. All right, looks like Jason's audio is connecting. All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Jason. Yes, how are you, friend?
Sweet, how you doing, Red Pill?
Excellent, brother. Excellent. Did you see the whole interview?
No, I saw like the last half hour, and I was like, damn, this is like right up my alley.
Definitely go back and listen to it after we're done.
Yeah, like unfortunately, but I'm dealing with the last caller kind of changed. I missed the caller before the last caller because I was just sitting here. Instead of going back to the stream, I'm just sitting in silence waiting to be and I'm like, wait, I guess I didn't know if I switched back if that would like cut off my Zoom since I'm watching on my phone and zooming. But anyways, my brother or a friend of mine has like schizo or something going on that I think is like schizophrenia, which has been like hellacious.
Right.
And but everything, there was so much interesting stuff with that whole interview, with that conversation, from the psychedelics, which I've done not a ton of psychedelics in my 10 and 15 years ago, 10 years ago, but mushrooms and quercetin, but then and some of what you guys were talking about. Mm-hmm. As far as like what do you call it? I think it was mescaline tripping. They're like the crystalline rainbow structures. And hyperspace.
Yeah, mescaline, DMT. I mean, but Clif's point was that you can reach that same plateau with enough mushrooms, and obviously LSD. They're all unique in their own way, but I think that there's a point at which you kind of transcend the matrix, so to speak, and on all of them you can go to the same place.
I can vouch for that for sure, and I don't recommend it, especially for younger people watching.
Absolutely not. No. And here's the thing, I said this earlier in the show. Psychedelics are not something that all people should take or that all people need to take. It's a uniquely personal decision, and I do not recommend anybody even considering it unless they are a full-grown adult and your body and your brain have developed. Even when you get to that point, I don't think that it's necessary for every person to do it. And even if you've only casually experienced them, or you've done it, a lot. I've known a lot of people who have done them way too much and it destroyed them.
Exactly.
It's not something that even needs to be experienced necessarily more than once. You can get the full awakening and realization of, yourself, your place within humanity and the universe in one single experience.
Right. And you can do it in other ways than those drugs. But
exactly.
Of course,
exactly.
Who knows all the, I guess, supernatural, metaphysical components of that whole experience. Mm-hmm. But there seems to be aspects of both where you're kind of opening yourself up to that maybe other dimension that can bring both bad and good. Mm-hmm. Right. You could potentially, we all probably who have done enough of that stuff. And I probably did it maybe 20 times, mushrooms, mm-hmm. And have bad trips or like very, what you call demonic, scary. Sure. Dark places, drugs in general, dark places.
Yeah.
New levels of darkness. If you've never done drugs, don't do them, because you don't even know what kind of levels of darkness and depression and hopelessness that you can experience until you do drugs.
So true.
You know, and
so
of course
true.
there's the highs. But anyways, I'm not trying to preach. I hate for young people or, you know, anybody to think, oh, maybe it's a good idea. And then people obviously screw up their lives really bad, really quickly.
Yeah.
But anyways, my brother, I guess this would have been for Clif. You know, I just have a lot of questions about schizophrenia and dealing with that, because my brother was hearing voices, or a voice that he called, or that called itself Nicodemus.
Oh, wow.
Which is someone in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And this voice, and my brother believed what the voice was telling him. And this Nicodemus was saying he is God. Mm-hmm. And like he is Jesus, he's whatever, all this stuff. But my brother's like having these like fits of like where he's destroying our house, because we had a house we were renting together. Mm-hmm. He broke all the windows, like totally demonic, if you ask me.
Yeah,
behavior.
Definitely.
And I'm like, dude, this is not God. This is not Jesus. And Nicodemus isn't God, in my opinion. Jesus Christ and God the Father.
Yeah.
There's no Nicodemus too.
Like, no.
But what's a trip about that when you break down that word? It's like you can break it down into like I see you, like the letters I, C, and U.
Yeah.
Like intensive care unit, and then demons. Okay. ICU demons, like intensive care unit demons, and then talking about COVID and all this stuff. Yeah. With the ICUs and the demonic almost activity where they're killing people in these ICUs. This is all just tripping me out, where that word Nicodemus that's talking to my brother, and I never even told him any of this, but I'm like, just the word initially the name struck me as, that's a creepy ass name, Nicodemus.
It is.
And it is, you know, and then I'm into like gematria. I like to see, because to me, it's no doubt that the cabal, whatever, they love to do that. They love to play with words and
it's like
numbers and all that.
It's like the way that they encode things, everything has special meaning. It gathers more power if it's on certain dates and times, and it lines up with, you know, the cycles of the moon. I mean, everything. They love doing that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like remember, like what is it? Corona is like 6 letters and equals 66 if you add up the value of each letter. Yeah. So it's 6 letters that add up to 66. So it's 666.
Yep.
I thought that was interesting that one guy found that. So anyways, so this is all just tripping me out, because now you guys are talking about schizophrenia and then just that voice, and I'm thinking the voice is either just his delusions, or a demon, or maybe they're one and the same, because it's not always that clear what are demons.
Well, it's like
what are thoughts.
In one respect,
you know.
In one respect, it's a delusion because it's not part of our collective reality. You know, he has experienced something that nobody else can see. But on the other side, it actually is like a real, like physical and experience for the person who's going through it. Because, you know, I mean, if you look into schizophrenia, you know, I mean, they will see, hear, feel, experience. It's not like you're just your internal monologue, you know. I mean, it is somebody else in your head directing you or telling you how worthless you are and saying terrible things. So yeah, I really have always thought that the people with schizophrenia, diagnosed schizophrenia, are cracking through into some other extra dimensional plane where the things that they're hearing and seeing exist within that plane, and they are just, you know, stepping over the boundary, or, you know, maybe through the shroud between worlds.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's why I'm like, I don't know, but what it is, whether you're creating it or it's, you know, you're crossing into another dimensional thing. Yeah. Like you brought something over, but it's not good, dude. Don't listen to it. It's lying to you. No. It's lying to you. I can tell you that. And I can tell you it through the word of God, which he, you know, believes in ostensibly. So it's not like he's like, oh, I don't believe in that stuff. He
Right.
does, but he's trying to make this fit with it. I'm like, it clearly doesn't fit, John.
Yeah.
And you got to understand that if this was God talking to you, then what does the Bible say? They will be known by their fruits. Look at your fruits. You're destroying your life. You're destroying people around you's lives.
Why would God tell you to break all the windows in your house? You know, I mean,
and I don't know if that voice told him to do that, because he does these outrageous things and then he has these conversations, but he never has said that the voice told me to.
Right.
So anyways, but still, it's just like, is God like reprimanding you for that? Is this Nicodemus reprimanding you? Because there's also never any like kind of like repentance or anything, remorse for these outbursts that he has. And then I'm like, what does the voice say about that? Anyways, but I just thought it was interesting though, the trippiness of breaking down that word at this time, like just the randomness of the fact that word breaks down into like ICU demons, or it's like
that's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, or us demonic is another one it could break down into. So it's really weird. Wow. Another thing, really quick, I got little notes here because I'm like, oh man, I keep thinking of stuff. But the Rainbow Bridge on Thor, right?
Yes.
You know the movie Thor, and like based on like the Rainbow Bridge. Yeah. Dude, the crystalline structures going through like hyperspace and all that. Dude, those guys. But wasn't that myth or whatever written like a long time ago? Like
that's part of Asgardian legend. I think that it's very possible that ancient peoples, who came up with these stories, they were trying to create hyperboles based upon things that they see in the world, their attempts to understand things, and who says somebody didn't eat some of the wrong mushrooms foraging in the woods someday.
That's where I was going. And then they like saw that rainbow thing and had the hyperspace thing, and then came up with that whole story, which is why they believed it so strongly, because it was actually somewhat of maybe an interdimensional experience. Right. Which brings me to my last one.
Okay, final one.
Okay, so right down like 5, 10, 20 miles from me, where I just moved here in southern Utah, which is like the most beautiful place in the world. I just discovered like 2 days ago, there's this cave called Lion's Mouth Cave with ancient pictograph cave paintings by the natives.
Dude, go get pictures.
I got pictures. Dude, there's a rocket ship pictograph. I mean, it's a rocket ship. It's a rocket.
Send it.
It's a rocket.
Send it. I want to see it.
So I'm like, were they tripping on peyote and they saw something in the future, or were they sitting there because it has a view of this whole entire valley?
Yeah.
Or did they see freaking aliens? But it's like a rocket ship, like a NASA rocket ship, not like a saucer or something like future. It's
That's
weird, dude.
Crazy, dude. Well, definitely send it, Jason. We got to move on to the next caller, buddy. I'm trying to get through these. We're already over time, but I appreciate you calling in, and we'll all be praying for your brother, man. Hopefully he gets the help that he needs.
Yeah, he right now he's in the hospital. So
okay.
Thank you. Please pray. Thank you.
No problem.
God bless.
All right. God bless. Talk to you soon. All right. You guys, please don't call in if you haven't called in yet. We're over time, and I just want to make sure we get through these last 4 callers. Caller, you're on the air. Caller, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Excellent. Can we get your name?
Name is Josh.
Hi, Josh. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Zach.
Yeah. What's going on? What'd you think of the interview?
Well, I kind of stepped into it halfway through. I wasn't really expecting that. It was very interesting. I'm open-minded to it. A lot of interesting concepts and whatnot. I'll have to go back and rewatch it to get the full gist of what was going on there. Just kind of stepping into that was pretty fast-paced. But,
you lost a lot of context, I think.
Yeah. Hey, earlier you had mentioned, like taking part in school board meetings, local government and such.
Yeah.
So, not to take up a lot of time, I have a few points I want to reach. I'll try to be quick about them. But I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania. I actually live a little south of it, Waterford, Pennsylvania. It's a rural area.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, in town, we've done things like, anti-mask protests and things. Pretty small number, crowd, but the passing traffic was very supportive and all that. Anyway, trying to network with those people physically, and go to school board meetings and things like that. Kind of have fun and some difficulty doing that. People don't they'll say, "Hey, come to the school board meeting," and then we ended up going there for the first time, not being a public speaker and almost making a fool of myself, just trying to prevent scientific facts about masks and whatnot.
Right. Right.
And do you have any advice for physical networking or any resources?
Well, no, not really. I mean, because I guess here's the thing. So do you want to pass out your email address or some way for people to get in touch with you? Because I know that there are patriots in Pennsylvania that watch the show. I mean, really, I know a lot of people end up doing networking through Facebook and stuff. I'm no longer on Facebook, haven't been for years. But I would hope that during the course of putting yourself out there in those positions, in these public situations, that you would end up meeting people, and you would end up, making some type of connection that way. And even if you're out there doing holding signs on the side of the road, I mean, have some type of way for people to get in touch with you on one of those signs. Say, hey, we're looking for people who want to get together, who want to talk about this stuff, who want to organize for these things. Having a simple website goes a long way. If you don't have Facebook, if you don't have a way for that to happen. If you have a single person who will just be willing to stand out in front of a grocery store and say, hey, what do you think about masking? What do you think about mandating vaccines for our children? Put together a petition. If you do a petition and you get people to sign that, then you get their name, you get their phone number, you get their email, and you can have them opt in or out of actually attending a physical meeting. And I applaud you for even getting the courage up to go to a public meeting like that, because I know it's not easy. I know that it's very difficult for most people to take themselves out of their comfort zone, to even say, you know what, I just had dinner and, I'm sitting down in front of the TV. Now I'm going to go out to the school board at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. It's not easy. It's just easier to stay home. Yeah. That is exactly it. And what I would say to that is that we are far beyond the point at which where we should be regressing into our creature comforts. Okay. It's incumbent upon every single one of us to do one small thing each day to try to further this message, to try to wake people up, and to try to move us into that next phase, America 2.0, if you will. Our bloodless American Revolution 2.0. Because that's the only way it's going to work. If you're one person at your job, and your job is saying that you're going to have to get the vaccine if you want to keep your job, the first thing I would be doing would be talking with every single employee there and getting to know how many of you are thinking about this in the same way. How many like-minded people are there? If there is any way at all for people to network, or even just being in the grocery store and talking to people. You see everybody else wearing masks. Well, you see one person walking by not wearing a mask. Go up and shake their hand. Be like, hey man, it's good to see your face. There's so many different ways to do it.
Good. I appreciate that. That's fantastic. Thank you.
I hope it helps, man, for sure.
It does. Sure does. Yeah, just, I don't know, right when this whole thing broke out, I mean, I was always sort of awake in life, not really political, kind of just moving along thinking everything in the system was broken and oh, poor me. Until one day, I was like, well, seeing President Trump on TV and whatnot, and, he would say the invisible enemy and stuff like that over. Eventually, he's saying more than what I'm getting. So I started looking into things. And within 14 days of being on lockdown, my wife and I completely had just woken up and been in full motion ever since, and she's the driving force. And she's really going out trying to put her feelers out. And like you said, we all have to do our part and reach out and try to wake everybody up in a sense.
That's right.
So trying to do that.
And again, I know how difficult it is. I know it's not easy, and the problem, the reason we're in the situation we are right now, where they've been able to essentially take over America and take us to the brink of destruction, is because so many of us were ensconced in the rigors of daily life. Jobs, family, taking care of the house, making sure that your bills are paid. And that's by design. I mean, they wanted to sap us of our energy and our will to do anything other than just survive, the grind of life. And, if you can just take an extra hour each day to set aside for working on these things that we're talking about, or taking part in something that furthers the message, I think that collectively, the impact that we can have is going to be far greater than if everybody simply goes home, eats dinner, sits down on the couch, watches a couple hours of television, and then goes to bed. And when they go to bed, they're thinking, the world is broken. What am I going to do? We will definitely lose if we have that attitude.
I was in those shoes until folks, patriots like yourself, Dave from X22, Pragmatic, encouraging people like myself to get out there and do something. And it's finally, coming to that precipice where it's time to get out there and do something in my community. So
absolutely.
Thank you for that.
I'm proud of you, man. Thank you. Well, thank you for saying so, and thank you for listening, for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for being there and always, getting us getting us through these times. I know it's crazy. Real quick, I know you got other people, and so locally, there's supposed to be an event in downtown Erie where they're going to have, just people go down to town square and gather. And, seeing the grips of like George Soros come early at an earlier time during this to my town, they're busing people in.
Oh, yes.
To cause havoc. They're throwing fireworks at the police and all kinds of things. How can you tell a false flag event? Should I even bother going to something? Because I figure that might be a good networking thing. Should
I think it would
veer
be
away
too.
From that?
I think that quite literally any event in public could at any moment be ruined by those people, and it could turn into a false flag event. The way that we can make sure that something like that doesn't happen is by making the commitment to not do something that would reflect poorly on us as a movement. Okay,
right, yourself.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. We all have a public and a personal responsibility. And, and even there is the possibility to talk to people that you might not otherwise ever speak to, who you don't agree with on much. But I would imagine that based upon the way the country's going right now, you would find that you have a lot more in common with those people than you ever dreamed possible. Like just recently, we had Trump supporters and BLM members marching through the streets of New York City, protesting the vaccine mandates. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was a little taken back by that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's possible. That's possible. Right now, because Joe Biden is living in the White House or wherever he is, I think that the chance that George Soros is going to bus in a whole bunch of protesters to burn down Erie, I think it's highly unlikely. I think that was
I do too.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, it's okay. So I would say go ahead and go. Be mindful. Be aware of what's going on around you. If you see somebody acting the fool, walk up to them and say, "Hey, this is not how we're supposed to act. Why are you doing this? Who are you? Who do you really work for? And
right.
And bring a notepad so you can get everybody's name and phone number. Be like, hey, listen, I'm trying to put together a group of like-minded patriots in this area, and if they don't want to give you their phone number because maybe they're paranoid about it, then be willing to give them yours. Maybe even get business cards made, just saying, Patriots of Pennsylvania. We want to get together. Yes. We want to do something. We want to make a difference and make a change.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. Well, I think I'll leave it at that. I appreciate your time, Zach. Thanks for being there for all of us. And Yeah, have a good night. I'll call back some other time.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon. Hopefully,
Hey,
fill
all
me
right.
in on some good news next time.
Will do. All right,
Awesome.
thank you.
All right, we'll see you. All right, we've got 2 callers left. We lost a couple people. Chops ITMC, sorry, buddy. I guess you had to get off. Also, same with Bruce Banner. First, we've got our Cloaked Unseen World, and then Aaron Moriarty is going to be our final caller of the evening. And our Cloaked Unseen World, are you there, buddy?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good. How's it going?
It's going all right. Long time no talk.
Absolutely, yeah. I see you've been doing some shows.
Yeah. I've been streaming live. I'm gonna talk. Gonna be having a Foxhole channel hopefully here soon.
Cool beans.
I already reached out to Matt and Methods. I'm waiting to hear back from Methods, but Matt told me to reach out to Methods and said that they would hook me up with one. So
awesome, dude. Awesome.
Yeah, I've been doing that, and but yeah, your guest. I really had some questions to ask that guy. I mean, I had some stuff I wanted to tell him if he didn't know. Things I know.
Right.
Too, and
he will definitely be back for a call in. He had some family stuff happening that made it so that he couldn't be here with us live tonight. But you'll definitely get a chance in the future for sure.
Yeah, because I wanted to talk to him about the walking through walls training system. Have you ever read that patent yet?
I have, and it's been a long time, but I've definitely seen it. I've seen the schematics and stuff.
Yeah, I would read it again, just the summary of it.
Okay.
Because it really tells you, what, when you do that walk, what it does to your, energy.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you don't have the computer program to print out the prints and all that, but
right.
I have evidence that's a real patent, in regards to, video footage of Bigfoot phasing through the wall of my house and all that stuff,
Yeah. I would, it's wild. It's wild stuff, I mean, to be able to do that, man.
And I've been in the hyperspace that he's talking about on multiple occasions, without any hallucinogenics.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, and I think a lot of it has to do with doing that walk, because it generates your hyperspace energy to flow around your rotating magnetic field of your life force. It makes you but it gives you energy. It gives you it does a lot of stuff. It shatters that calcification of the third eye, but yeah, then also I've been a mental health nurse for the last 15 years, and I dealt with schizophrenia and all those kinds of patients, and so I mean I'm real familiar with that kind of stuff too, and yeah, it just seemed like a really really cool guest. I'd seen that guy one other time. I think it was I forget where I saw him, but yeah, I need to figure out his channel and start watching him.
Yeah, it's just Clif, CLIF, and last name High, HIGH. I think you would love his stuff, man. His videos are great. It's really, really good stuff.
Yeah, so my plan is on the Foxhole to do what I've been doing on my live stream, but I also want to have a call-in show, maybe once or twice a week, maybe even 3, I don't know.
Sweet.
Where people can call in and do tell what can do one of two things or both, video record something that, nature in their area to see, I could show them if there's something there or not that they can't see, teach them how to see it on video, and then also, tell stories, miraculous things that have happened to people, and, things that are out of the ordinary out in, nature or anywhere, and, anywhere, whether it's been in an airplane or in a, in the ocean, wherever, just any crazy stuff that people have seen. And, so people can hear other people talk about it and, see that, you're not so crazy.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. That would be awesome to do it.
Yeah. But I think adding that extra thing with it, break down the video that if they want me to look at something that they recorded that they have questions about, I could maybe, see things and point out things that other people don't.
Right.
Point out things that people can see, but they just didn't know it was there to look at.
Yeah.
It's hard, but I guarantee you, if somebody watched me long enough and they didn't see stuff, they would see stuff. I guarantee you that. I have no doubt
absolutely.
about it. It's just a matter of putting the effort in and wanting to see something you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It seems like
it's a trip, man. It's for sure.
I mean, it's like they indoctrinate us to like live in our analytical mind and get the imagination, which is the one thing that never lies to you. It's all that and energy. There are two things that never lie to you: is imagination and energy. And what does imagination do? It creates and generates energy. And they like basically they trick us into believing that imagination is just a figment of, it's not real. Right. And then so we're in that analytical mind, and we're creating and we're manifesting the world that they want us to create instead of the world that we want to create.
Right.
But that's what it comes down to.
Well, do you want to give people your email, so if anybody's got out there has something they want to send you, you can go ahead and get it together?
I'm trying to decide if I want to use my Proton Mail yet or not. Right now, just my first and last. See, I'm gonna wait on that. Okay. I don't know if I have the Proton Mail memorized yet. I think it's just our unseen. I think it's our cloaked unseen world at or they could Twitter me something or Gab me. I have a Gab account and Twitter links, and I'll put them in my description on my YouTube channel.
All right, awesome, brother.
So they can leave it. They can leave a message there, and then or my Discord.
All right,
Discord. I think that's there too. That's a permanent one. That should always work.
Sweet, so awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do, man. And I definitely, if you get the calls going, I'll call in too.
All right,
brother. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, yeah. Take care.
Peace. All right, final caller of the evening, Aaron Moriarty. Here we go. All right. Aaron, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you for your patience, man. Final caller of the evening. What'd you think about the interview with Clif High?
I thought it was great. And when he started talking about the hallucinogenics, I knew Clif was high.
Oh man. Oh, it's funny. It's a funny world, you know. The whole thing. I loved the conversation. I loved the direction that we went. You know, I had even other things that I wanted to ask him about, you know, but it's fine. I'll save it for when he's live on the air, you know.
I was going to ask him if he saw a blip on the big Invisimask, because I got this in a shirt now.
Have you got anybody in town wearing those? Like, I just wonder if you go to the grocery store and you see some.
I went to Walmart today.
Yeah.
Wearing this, and I went to Papa Murphy's Pizza or the Take and Bake.
Yep.
And I think I made 3 sales there.
Oh, that's so cool, dude.
I gave out my little card.
Awesome.
On YouTube, and it's on the little description. So hopefully they'll get one. And they just love the Invisimask. And I had an argument.
It's a great concept.
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, I pretty much single-handedly saved the world, but you know, it's okay.
Whoa, Muffin! Oh my God! Go, Muffin, move!
Oh no!
She hit the pressure release on the chair, so it dropped down.
Oh no!
Oh my God, Muffin!
Crush the puppy. Don't crush the puppy.
Oh my God. You know, she'll she rubs her back on things. Like right now, she's making me itch her back because she's like, Dad, you're already over time. What the heck's going on? I want to go outside.
Dogs are like that. It's like, you have hands, scratch me.
Exactly. That's too funny.
I wanted to also mention the Antarctica thing. Where he mentioned that they're going to be opening this up, and for 100 years, it's going to be Antarctica, ancient. So Corey Good was taken down there. You might know from his testimony.
Yeah.
That there were these elongated head, kind of pointed head aliens there with kind of like pot bellies. And also some humans with tails on them. And there's some half animal, half human experiments there.
Oh, wow.
Stuck in the ice.
Oh, wow.
But they've been doing this since 2002. They've been excavating all this area out, and they're taking out all the alien stuff and they're replacing it with like Egyptian crap.
Oh.
So when it does come out, just remember they're
Yeah.
not telling you the whole story.
Yeah.
It's not full disclosure. It's partial disclosure, limited hangout.
I would be surprised if they did anything less.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that struck me was when he mentioned when he was doing these hallucinogenic trips, or when he was, going on these excursions, he was a sphere.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was when I was out of my body.
Yeah, I saw you say that in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the only other place where I've heard it, and that's the Alien Interview by Lawrence Spencer.
Oh, yes.
He talks about it in there. But yeah, I was just a sphere, and a sphere of nothing but everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing. It's absolutely amazing. From one of the previous callers, maybe you could do like mock videotaped practice sessions on what you're going to present to the school board.
There you go.
That could be very helpful.
That is a good idea.
You're all practiced, and you're not going to, picture them all naked. Maybe not naked. But the other thing I wanted to mention was I'd love to ask Clif High if he saw anything in his information that he has these robots going around about this really in-depth survey they did in 2 places, and they got almost identical answers from both places. One was Dubai, one was Abu Dhabi, and they agreed on everything except one thing, which was seemingly small, but it seems to be a big thing now, an entertainment issue. It seems that the people in Dubai do not like the Flintstones, but the Yabba Dabba Doo.
I was like, I'm waiting for the punchline.
You got it. You got the punchline, babe.
Oh my God, that's great. Aaron, I love you, Aaron. That's so funny. All right, thanks for calling in, buddy. I appreciate you.
All right, I'm going live soon, so I hope to see you there.
All right, tune in to Aaron Moriarty's Truth Quest right after this. All right, buddy, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Peace. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I need to go through and do the thank yous. We're going to start with Foxhole, Kansas Mudcat. I'm just going to say your name unless you actually put a comment in. Belushi, Bruce Banner said, great guests, make great shows, Zach. Well done. Hang 10 Alien Surfer says, Cliff is great. Thanks again, Belushi. Better Lately says, thank you, Zach. Cliff is a fascinating person, such a wealth of knowledge. Sean Joe, thank you for that. Son of a Green Card, thank you. Freedom Flyer, thank you. Hang 10 Alien Surfer, thank you. Sean Joe, thank you. Donabo Libby, thank you. Rapture Ready, thank you. Kilroy1962 says, I don't think they want us to see this. Going to D-Live, great show. P. Thaggy says, donated Woo Coins. Light Ray, thank you. Mountain Lace, Forest Friend says, thanks RP, you the man. Belushi, again, thanks, bud. Better Lately, again, says, really appreciate you, buddy. Great interview, great guest, great work. Philly369 Garden says, no fear. Just wanting to save as many souls as possible. Otherwise, comfy AF. There you go. Jason Blocker says, cheap, but it's what I got. Every single bit counts as support. Thank you. Napkinator, thank you for the ship. Low Country Brooklyn says, Jason, great call. Please email Zach those pics. Yes, Jason, don't forget, email me those clips. Then Sean Joe, thank you. And Jomo70 says, thank you, Zach, for your great work. Really appreciate it. Over on Odyssey, Chops ITMC says, currently, we are in an advancing solar spot cycle. Ham radio users like this for the radio propagation. Has your software made any mention or reference to such a factor? And unfortunately, because Cliff wasn't here, he couldn't answer. Vitamin D, if memory serves, is about 25% of the human genetic code. And then ADP, ATP cycling is a major factor in the citric acid cycle of cellular and coloring metabolism. Spike protein used in this event directly interferes with this. Has your work found any difference between my work so far and a prion disease? And then Chops, please keep those questions on deck so that we can ask Cliff the next time he's on. And then Vicral TV says, Cliff is a modern-day Da Vinci. He is a wise revolutionary to listen to when shit really starts hitting the fan. And then Chop says, good night, everyone. I've got stuff in the morning. And then Appalachian Prospectors, can you summarize what Cliff's message was? No, you need to watch the entire video because we talk about a lot of different things. And then over on D-Live, thank you for those follows. Banger42, Dumpy Montana, Row Patriot, Luddiest, and then Joshua Bain dropped a Ninjagini. I'm Scottish, and I find that statement very offensive. Triggered. Thanks, Kara K, and Knock My Socks Off. Joshua Bain says, again, this story about George Wu is really interesting. I feel like a documentary about it should be made. Thank you, Bad Bear and Deuce Volt. Joshua Bain again says, wow, this fugue state hyperspace conversation is wild. This needs to be a show of its own. Thank you, Banger42, Lucky Q17, and then Hamtown says, freedom from demons. Lucky Q17, Kiss Baby, DW, thanks for the follow, and then also Drop Dem Chonies, Andrew Rawlings, and then Annette Wells, and then also Emp13P13. Is that Empire? And I don't know what else that's supposed to be. Then Trusty Turnip, thank you very much. And then thank you to everybody who has been hanging here with us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and drop the gold pills over on Foxhole. Want to make sure I don't get caught forgetting that again. There you go. Scratch Off has been released. All right, you guys. I will be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Let me see who's going to be on the show. And, okay, I don't have it in my calendar, but I guarantee I've got somebody scheduled. So, good luck. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.